Surrounded by enemies, the princess shielded her children with her life. From her vantage point in the Sky Citadel, the great floating fortress above the capital city, she could see the glimmer of the city below, the tall spires, the wide plazas, and the people beginning their morning routines. For a moment, the world seemed at peace, almost ordinary. But Alara knew better. She had learned long ago that calm was often the quiet before a storm, and in the depths of her heart, she felt the weight of an approaching danger that would test everything she loved. Her twin children, Kale and Leora, were asleep in their chambers, unaware of the unease that had settled over the citadel. They were young, only 10 years old, but already remarkable in ways that set them apart. Kale's sharp mind grasped patterns and strategies almost instinctively, while Leora had a keen sense of intuition, sensing things before they happened. Alara watched them often, marveling at how humanity's potential could shine even in its youngest members. She had always believed that the future of their colony rested in the hands of its children, and hers were no exception. She wanted to shield them from the harsh realities of the universe, to protect their innocence for as long as she could, but she knew that protection was fleeting. Her father had ruled Ardelia before her, a wise man who had kept peace through diplomacy and careful planning. Alara, now the princess and heir, carried the weight of responsibility with a fierce determination. She could not fail, not as a leader, not as a mother. Every decision she made resonated not only through the halls of the citadel, but through the lives of every citizen who called this planet home. She had always believed that humans were more than their fragile appearances suggested. They were resilient, creative, and capable of extraordinary feats when pushed to the edge. And now, that belief would be tested as never before. The warning came quietly at first, a series of signals detected by the Citadel's scanners. Tiny blips in deep space, moving with precision and speed, unmarked and unfamiliar. The generals and advisors had begun to murmur about patrol ships and reconnaissance, but Alara saw the truth immediately. The Armada was not scouting, they were approaching. The Zyathian Collective, an empire that had grown through conquest and brutality, was moving toward Ardelia. They saw humans not as equals but as pests, an obstacle to be crushed. Alara convened the council in the war chamber, a massive hall suspended in the heart of the citadel, where the light of the morning sun streamed through panoramic windows. The council members, seasoned military leaders and advisors, looked to her, waiting for guidance. She studied the projections of the approaching fleet, each Zyathian ship massive, angular, and bristling with unknown weaponry. "They are coming with intent," she said, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. "This is not a raid. This is an invasion. Diplomacy will not stop them. We will prepare to defend our home and we will protect our people. But first, we must ensure the safety of those who cannot fight." Her words were met with solemn nods. The council understood her meaning. Kale and Leora were to be hidden, shielded from the coming chaos. Alara had already begun designing a sanctuary deep within the citadel, a place fortified not only against attacks but against fear. It would be a place of learning and survival, stocked with supplies, tools, and defenses, a place where her children could grow even in the midst of war. As preparations began, Alara walked the corridors of the citadel, observing the citizens as they mobilized. Engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce the outer walls with adaptive alloys. Scientists reprogrammed automated defense drones, enhancing their targeting systems. Civilians volunteered in droves, assisting with barricades, supplies, and communication networks. The spirit of Ardelia's people shone through, their courage a testament to human resilience. Alara felt a surge of pride. Humans were often underestimated, even by themselves, but when pressed, they revealed an ingenuity and bravery that no enemy could anticipate. Back in her private chambers, Alara paused to watch her children through a small surveillance console. Kale and Leora were already awake, reading and experimenting with small devices, oblivious to the storm gathering beyond the citadel walls. A pang of worry struck her. She wanted to keep them safe, to wrap them in a bubble where danger could never reach them, but she knew that such protection was impossible. She had to prepare them not just to survive, but to understand courage and sacrifice. The lessons she would teach them in the coming days would shape the humans they were destined to become. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent alarm. The scanners had detected the Zyathian vanguard emerging from the folds of deep space. The first ships entered the outer atmosphere, casting long shadows across the planet's surface. They were enormous, more formidable than any images or simulations could have conveyed. The hum of their engines resonated through the citadel, a deep vibration that made the walls tremble. Alara did not flinch. She had anticipated this moment. She activated the citadel's defense systems, deploying energy shields across the perimeter and opening the gates for aerial drones. Human pilots took their positions in the sky above the city, engines blazing as they prepared to intercept the invaders. The citizens held their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash, their eyes drawn upward to the approaching fleet. In the midst of the preparations, Alara summoned her closest aides to her side. "We fight with every advantage we have," she instructed. "But our priority is survival. We will protect our children, our people, and our future. Every human here must understand that courage is our greatest weapon." The children, Kale and Leora, were escorted to the sanctuary under the careful watch of loyal guards. Alara knelt before them, placing her hands on their shoulders. "Listen to me," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "The world outside may seem frightening, but remember who you are. You are human, and humans are strong, clever, and unyielding. Trust in your mind, trust in each other, and trust in the people who fight beside you. I will come for you no matter what." Kale's eyes widened with a mixture of fear and determination. "We'll be brave, Mother," he said. Leora nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Alara smiled, though a shadow of worry lingered. She kissed their foreheads and watched as they were guided into the sanctuary, the heavy doors sealing them inside. She could hear the distant echoes of preparations, the hum of engines, and the anxious murmurs of the citizens outside. The first wave of Zyathian ships struck just as the sun reached its zenith. Energy beams lanced through the atmosphere, and explosions lit the cityscape in flashes of orange and white. Human pilots darted through the sky, dodging the alien fire and retaliating with precision attacks. The citadel shook under the impact of weapons far more advanced than anything humans had built, yet Alara remained calm. She moved from station to station, coordinating defenses, issuing orders, and inspiring those around her. Every strategy she deployed relied on human ingenuity. The engineers had rigged energy nets that could entangle the enemy ships, while scientists had developed drones that could anticipate enemy maneuvers through rapid learning algorithms. These innovations allowed humans to hold their ground, despite the overwhelming power of the invaders. Alara caught a glimpse of a young technician, no older than Kale, who had rigged a makeshift energy shield to protect a critical generator. The boy's hands trembled as he worked, but he did not stop. Alara offered him a nod of encouragement, and he met her gaze with newfound confidence. This was what made humans remarkable, their ability to rise above fear, to adapt, to become heroes in a moment's notice. As the battle raged, Alara allowed herself a brief moment to consider the future. Her children were safe, the citizens were resilient, and humanity's spirit burned bright. Even if the Zyathians thought themselves invincible, they had underestimated the human heart, its creativity, and its determination. Night fell over Ardelia, and the battle continued beneath the darkened sky. Explosions painted the clouds with fire, and the cries of war echoed across the capital. Alara did not rest. She could not. Every life in the citadel was her responsibility, and every decision she made could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Yet, even in the chaos, she found moments of hope. Civilians rescued trapped families, engineers repaired critical systems on the fly, and pilots executed maneuvers that defied expectation. Humanity was showing the galaxy that even when cornered, it would not surrender. It would fight, innovate, and protect what it loved. And at the heart of it all, Princess Alara stood, unwavering. Her eyes never left the horizon, where the enemy fleet still advanced. She was ready to face whatever came, not as a princess, but as a mother and a human, a beacon of courage and resilience. She knew the coming days would test her in ways she could not yet imagine, but she also knew that humans, when pushed to their limits, could achieve the extraordinary. As the first part of the battle ended with a tense, uneasy pause, Alara allowed herself a fleeting thought of her children. Kale and Leora were safe for now, hidden away in the sanctuary, but their journey had only begun. The storm was coming, and with it, trials that would shape not only their lives but the legacy of humanity itself. The princess took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "We will endure. We will survive. We will show them the strength of humans." And with that, she turned back to the battle, ready to defend her people with everything she had, knowing that the days ahead would demand all the courage and ingenuity that humanity could offer. The sky over Ardelia had turned harsh, gray as the Zyathian fleet pressed closer. Their ships moved like shadows over the city, massive and angular, humming with a strange energy that made the citadel tremble. Princess Alara stood at the command center, her eyes scanning the holographic displays as energy beams lanced through the atmosphere and buildings shook under the impact of alien weapons. The first wave had been intense, but now the real battle was beginning. The Zyathians were methodical, coordinated, and relentless. Alara's mind raced as she issued orders, her voice calm but commanding. Deploy the orbital drones to intercept the lead vessels. Shield the lower districts. Keep civilians in the evacuation zones and maintain communication with all sectors. Her words were precise, leaving no room for hesitation. Around her, officers and engineers moved with purpose, adjusting shields, recalibrating weapons, and coordinating the city's defenses. Every second counted. The enemy advanced with precision, their ships slicing through Ardelia's defenses, testing the limits of human technology. Yet humans, as Alara knew, were nothing if not adaptable. Engineers had modified drones to move unpredictably, dodging the Zyathian fire and striking back with concentrated energy bursts. Civilians assisted, building barricades, rerouting power, and improvising weapons from the resources available. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the people of Ardelia showed courage and unity. Below the citadel, streets were chaos. Citizens scrambled for safety while volunteer militias tried to hold the line. Families huddled together as sirens blared overhead. Yet amid the fear, there were sparks of heroism. A group of young engineers managed to redirect a failing energy conduit, saving an entire district from destruction. Soldiers took risks to evacuate trapped civilians, their bravery shining like beacons in the darkness. Alara watched it all, pride swelling in her chest. This was what made humans extraordinary. They could rise to the occasion, face unimaginable danger, and still find strength in one another. Meanwhile, deep inside the citadel, Kale and Leora waited in the sanctuary, their hearts pounding as distant explosions shook the walls. The space was well fortified, stocked with supplies, tools, and emergency systems, but it was still strange for them to be hidden away, separated from the chaos. Kale fiddled with a small device, trying to understand its function, while Leora traced patterns on a data pad, sensing vibrations through the structure that the adults could not. "I wish we could help," Kale said quietly. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a mix of fear and determination. "You will when the time is right," Leora replied, gripping her brother's hand. She felt a strange energy in the walls, as though the sanctuary itself were alive, reacting to the battle outside. Mother taught us to think, to observe. We can prepare ourselves, even from here. Alara had ensured that her children could play a small part in the defense. She had given them access to emergency communication panels and tools for monitoring the citadel. While she led the battle above, the twins learned the importance of observation, logic, and strategy. In these small ways, they were already growing into the humans she hoped they would become. Above, the battle intensified. Xiathian ships tore through the outer defenses, their weapons capable of reducing buildings to rubble in moments. But humans did not falter. Pilots swooped through the sky, maneuvering with agility that no alien ship could anticipate. Drones adjusted in real time, intercepting projectiles, and human ingenuity turned the environment into a weapon. Bridges were rigged to collapse under enemy weight, energy nets entangled ships, and underground turrets targeted blind spots. Alara moved from station to station, her mind calculating probabilities, predicting enemy moves, and adjusting strategies. She coordinated strikes with a precision that surprised even her most experienced generals. "We need to lure the lead ships into the canyon below," she instructed, pointing at the projected terrain. "They rely on superior power, but they cannot adapt to sudden environmental hazards. Use the narrow passages to our advantage. The canyon's energy amplifiers will turn their own weapons against them." The plan was risky, but it worked. Xiathian vessels, confident in their strength, pursued the human drones into the canyon. Explosions rocked the narrow cliffs as energy beams reflected and ricocheted, damaging enemy ships and forcing them to retreat. The citizens of Ardelia cheered, their morale lifted by the display of clever tactics. Even the soldiers who had doubted victory felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humans could fight back, and Alara was showing them the way. Despite these victories, the enemy was relentless. New ships appeared on the horizon, and the citadel's shield strained under the constant bombardment. Alara knew this would be only the first of many waves. She was already thinking several steps ahead, preparing contingency plans, and training her officers to act independently if she could not be everywhere at once. The safety of the city depended not only on technology, but on the ingenuity, courage, and determination of every human present. As night fell over the capital, the twin moons casting pale light over the battlefield, the city was both illuminated and shadowed by explosions. The sound of energy beams, alarms, and the cries of citizens filled the air, creating a symphony of chaos. Alara stood on the highest observation deck, watching as her people fought with unmatched bravery. Soldiers and civilians alike were improvising, turning ordinary objects into weapons, adapting to circumstances in ways the Xiathians could not anticipate. Down in the sanctuary, Kale and Leora began to experiment with emergency systems, following the instructions their mother had provided. Kale analyzed energy flows, discovering ways to enhance shields, while Leora sensed structural weaknesses in the citadel, noting them for later repairs. Though young, they were learning the most important lesson of all. Survival depended on intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act, even in fear. Hours passed, and the battle raged on without pause. Alara noticed that enemy patterns began to shift, as if they were adapting to the humans' unpredictability. It was a dangerous game. Any miscalculation could mean disaster. Yet, she also knew that adaptability was humanity's greatest weapon. While the Xiathians relied on rigid protocols and superior firepower, humans could improvise, create, and overcome. Every moment of resistance, every clever maneuver, reinforced the idea that humanity would not yield. At one point, a massive Xiathian cruiser broke through the outer perimeter, its weapons tearing through defenses. Alara acted quickly, coordinating a counterattack that used the city's environment as a trap. She lured the cruiser over a canyon rigged with energy amplifiers, and the resulting explosion disabled its engines, forcing it to drift helplessly. Citizens on the ground erupted in cheers, witnessing firsthand that brains could triumph over brute strength. But the victory was short-lived. The Xyathians had reinforcements, and their numbers seemed endless. The citadel shook violently as new waves of ships emerged, forcing humans to fight on multiple fronts. Explosions rocked the city, debris fell, and fires broke out in lower districts. Alara moved tirelessly, her energy unyielding, her mind calculating each move, each counter, each sacrifice necessary to protect her people. Amid the chaos, a messenger arrived at the command center with an urgent report. A breach had been detected near one of the secondary gates. Enemy forces were attempting to infiltrate the citadel. Alara did not hesitate. She dispatched a team of elite soldiers, personally guiding them through communication channels, instructing them on tactics, and predicting enemy moves. Her strategy combined careful planning with improvisation, a mix that left the Xyathians confused and vulnerable. In the sanctuary, Kale and Leora sensed the tension outside. They could feel the vibrations of the battle through the walls and floors, and their hands moved quickly over consoles, assisting in minor ways as their mother had instructed. Though hidden and shielded, they were part of the defense, learning courage in their own small way. The first night of battle ended with heavy losses on both sides. The Xyathians were formidable, but humans had proven they were not helpless. The citizens of Ardelia had seen their leaders fight alongside them, had witnessed ingenuity and courage turn the tide in moments, and had begun to understand that their strength lay not just in weapons, but in their minds and hearts. Alara, exhausted but unyielding, allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She looked at the sanctuary's location on the map, imagining her children safe within. She knew the next day would be even more challenging. The Xyathians would return, stronger and more determined. Yet she also knew that humanity had already shown its power, the ability to resist, to adapt, and to fight against impossible odds. She whispered softly to herself, a vow for the battles yet to come. We will endure. We will defend our home. We will survive for our children, for our people, for humanity. As the first stars appeared in the night sky over the war-torn city, the people of Ardelia rested where they could, preparing for the next day. Pilots recharged their ships, engineers repaired damage, and soldiers tended to the wounded. Though fear lingered, so did hope. Humanity had faced the impossible and had held its ground. And above it all, Princess Alara remained vigilant, her resolve unshaken, her mind sharp, and her heart filled with determination. She would lead her people through the storm, shield her children from the worst of it, and prove to the galaxy that humans, though small and fragile in appearance, possessed a spirit that could never be broken. The battle had begun, and humanity had already shown that it would not yield, no matter the odds. The sun rose over Ardelia, but its light did little to warm the battered city. Smoke curled from the lower districts, mixing with the pale gray clouds that hung heavy in the sky. Princess Alara stood on the central tower of the citadel, looking down at the chaos that stretched below. The Xyathian forces had pressed deeper into the city, surrounding the citadel from every side. Their ships hovered above the floating fortress, casting long shadows over the towers and plazas, and on the ground, their infantry moved with deadly precision. Alara knew that this was the moment the humans would be tested as never before. She had anticipated the siege, had prepared strategies, and had fortified the city as much as possible, but now, surrounded on all sides, every decision she made carried life-or-death consequences. Her people were brave, yes, but bravery alone would not win this battle. They would need ingenuity, cunning, and the unyielding will to survive. Her first thought was of her children. Kale and Leora were safely hidden in the sanctuary beneath the citadel, but she knew that safety was only temporary. The longer the siege continued, the greater the risk that the Xiathians would discover their location. She sent encrypted signals to the sanctuary, instructing the guards to double the defenses, to activate emergency measures, and to maintain calm. "Trust yourselves," she whispered over the comm link, her voice steady, "and trust in each other. I will come for you when the time is right." Below her, human forces moved with determination, blocking enemy advances, reinforcing barricades, and rescuing civilians trapped in the crossfire. Soldiers carried heavy plasma rifles, drones swooped through the sky, and engineers rigged improvised defenses at breakneck speed. Civilians, unarmed but undeterred, created obstacles and guided fleeing families to safety. Alara watched it all with a mix of pride and concern. Every human she saw was a testament to what humanity could achieve when pushed to the edge. But the Xiathians were relentless. Their technology was advanced, their ships and weapons designed for destruction, and their infantry trained to overcome any obstacle. They had encircled the citadel with a precision that suggested experience and cold calculation. Each attack tested human defenses, probing weaknesses and adapting to countermeasures. Yet, for all their might, they had underestimated the unpredictable nature of human ingenuity. Alara moved quickly from command station to command station, adjusting strategies in real time. "Deploy the energy nets to the eastern walls," she ordered. "Use the canyon traps as decoys. Prepare the plasma turrets for concentrated strikes. Anticipate their flanking maneuvers. They will come from the shadows if we leave any gaps." Her voice was calm but firm, and her officers moved like extensions of her will, implementing the orders with precision. Even as she coordinated the defense, Alara knew that she could not be everywhere at once. Some areas would require improvisation, and she trusted her people to think creatively. Humanity's greatest strength, she reflected, was not in their weapons or technology, but in their minds, the ability to adapt, innovate, and make the impossible possible. It was what had allowed them to survive this long against a superior enemy, and it would be what allowed them to endure the days ahead. In the sanctuary, Kale and Leora listened to the distant rumble of the siege. Through the thick walls they could feel vibrations, hear the shouts and alarms, and sense the tension that gripped the citadel. Though young, they were learning quickly. Kale analyzed energy patterns from the defense systems, noting weaknesses and suggesting minor adjustments to the guards. Leora, attuned to structural vibrations, identified points of potential collapse and instructed the team on reinforcement measures. "We can't fight them directly," Kale said quietly, "but we can help. We can make sure this place holds." "You're right," Leora replied, her voice steady. "Mother showed us how to think. We'll do what we can, and that's enough for now." Outside, the Xiathians pressed their attack. Their infantry moved through the outer gates, advancing under the cover of heavy weapons fire. Explosions shook the city, debris rained from damaged buildings, and fires spread quickly. Soldiers fought valiantly, human ingenuity turning ordinary structures into traps. Energy grids overloaded enemy armor, drones ambushed flanks, and civilians blocked narrow corridors with barricades. Every human was a piece of a larger puzzle, a living example of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Alara knew that holding the citadel indefinitely was impossible. The Xiathians had superior numbers and firepower, and the siege would only intensify as reinforcements arrived. She began planning a strategy that would protect her people while also ensuring the safety of her children. It would be dangerous, and it required precise timing, but it was the only way to preserve life. Her plan was simple in concept but difficult in execution. She would lead a small elite force to engage the Xiathians directly, drawing their attention and holding them at the citadel's core. Meanwhile, the majority of the citizens, along with Kale and Leora, would be evacuated through hidden tunnels and secondary exits, taking them to a pre-prepared safe zone outside the city. It was a gamble, but one she had no choice but to take. As she prepared, she activated the Citadel's most secret defense systems. Automated turrets, energy shields, and environmental traps were readied, designed to protect both the elite force and the evacuation routes. Alara went over every detail, anticipating possible outcomes, calculating risks, and ensuring that no possibility was overlooked. Every decision mattered. One misstep could cost hundreds of lives, including her own. With the preparations complete, she gathered her team, a group of the most skilled soldiers, engineers, and tacticians in the Citadel. "We hold the center," she instructed. "We are the shield that allows our people to escape. We fight not because we want to, but because we must. Every second we buy is a life saved. Remember that and act with courage and precision." The squad moved out, blending into the chaos of the city as they engaged the Xiathians. Alara led from the front, her presence a beacon for the humans around her. She fought with a combination of strategy, skill, and bravery, exploiting weaknesses in the enemy formations and improvising when plans faltered. Drones and automated systems responded to her commands, amplifying her effectiveness and keeping the enemy off balance. Every moment was tense, every action critical. Explosions rocked the streets, buildings collapsed under fire, and energy beams cut through the air. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, humans continued to adapt, think, and fight. Soldiers used debris as cover, civilians guided escapees through narrow corridors, and engineers rigged weapons to operate in ways the Xiathians had never anticipated. The ingenuity of humanity shone brightly amid the chaos. Below the fighting, Kale and Leora observed through the sanctuary systems. They tracked troop movements, monitored energy flows, and suggested adjustments that helped maintain the integrity of the structure. Though they were young, they were learning courage, ingenuity, and responsibility, the lessons their mother had always hoped to impart. Hours passed, and the siege showed no sign of ending. Yet, Alara's strategy began to pay off. Enemy forces were delayed, confused by human improvisation, and forced to divide their attention between the center and other parts of the city. Civilians and soldiers alike began to move through evacuation routes, their escape facilitated by the courage and leadership displayed at the Citadel's core. In one critical moment, an Xiathian commander attempted a bold maneuver to breach the central tower. Alara anticipated the move, redirecting energy shields and deploying drones in a way that turned the enemy's own weapons against them. The attack failed, and the enemy forces were pushed back. Around her, humans cheered, their spirits lifted by the victory, however small. But Alara knew this was only temporary. The Xiathians were patient, relentless, and resourceful. They would return stronger, and the next wave would be even more dangerous. Her focus remained on the children, the civilians, and the overall survival of the city. The ultimate sacrifice might be required, and she was prepared to give it if necessary. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the battered city, Alara paused to take stock. The evacuation was proceeding successfully. Kale and Leora were safe, for now, and the citizens were moving through the tunnels toward safety. The elite squad she had led had held the center, buying precious time and demonstrating the indomitable spirit of humanity. In the quiet moments between battles, she allowed herself a fleeting thought of hope. Humanity had survived impossible odds before, and they would survive again. The courage, intelligence, and unity of her people were unmatched. Even in the darkest hours, humans could shine. As night fell over Ardelia, the battle continued, but the city was not lost. Every life saved, every enemy delayed, was a testament to the resilience of humans and the leadership of their princess. Alara stood tall, wounded but unbroken, her resolve unwavering. She would fight for every citizen, protect her children at all costs, and show the galaxy that humans, though small and fragile in appearance, possessed a spirit that no enemy could conquer. The siege had entered its critical phase. The citadel was surrounded, but humanity had proven it could endure, adapt, and fight back. And at the center of it all, Princess Alara remained, a living example of courage, ingenuity, and unyielding love for her people and her children. The story of survival was far from over, and the next day would demand every ounce of human determination and bravery. The citadel was surrounded on all sides, a massive fortress now caught in the tight grip of the Zyathian army. From her vantage point on the central tower, Princess Alara could see the enemy advancing with calculated precision. Their ships hovered in the sky like dark predators, while their ground forces spread across the city below. The battle had raged for days, yet the enemy showed no signs of slowing. Alara knew that this was the moment that would define the fate of Ardelia, her children, and her people. Every decision mattered. Every movement could save or cost lives. Alara's eyes swept across the city, noting the positions of the remaining forces, the locations of civilians, and the evacuation routes. Kale and Leora were safe for now, hidden deep in the sanctuary she had prepared, but she could not afford complacency. The Zyathians were intelligent, and sooner or later they would discover the tunnels and the hidden safe zones. She had to act decisively and swiftly. Alara called her elite squad to her side. These were the humans she trusted most, soldiers who had proven their skill and courage time and again. "We hold the center as long as we can," she instructed, her voice calm and commanding. "The tunnels are open, and our people are moving through them. Every second we buy is a life saved. Remember that we fight not for ourselves alone, but for everyone who relies on us. Protect the citadel, protect the city, and protect the future of humanity." The squad nodded, their faces resolute. They had witnessed Alara's bravery firsthand, and their loyalty was unwavering. Humans may have been physically smaller than the Zyathians, but they had something no alien technology could replicate: courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will to survive. The first wave of the assault began at dawn. Zyathian ships released energy pulses that rocked the citadel, while ground forces attempted to storm the walls. Humans responded with everything they had. Drones intercepted incoming fire. Energy shields absorbed blasts that would have destroyed ordinary structures, and soldiers held chokepoints with unwavering determination. Every citizen played a role, from engineers maintaining critical systems to medics tending the wounded. Alara moved through the battlefield with precision, issuing orders, directing reinforcements, and personally leading counterattacks. She was everywhere at once, a living symbol of resistance. Even when Zyathian fire tore through nearby walls and debris fell around her, she remained focused, guiding her people through the chaos with sharp clarity and unwavering resolve. Despite their best efforts, the Zyathians managed to breach the outer walls in several locations. Alara anticipated this and had rigged traps, energy nets, and environmental hazards to slow them down. Ships became entangled in power grids, and infantry units found themselves caught in sudden collapses or ambushes. Humans were resourceful, and their unpredictability frustrated the alien attackers. Every move they made was calculated, adaptive, and fueled by the will to survive. Deep within the citadel, Kale and Leora followed every development through the monitoring systems. The twins had become adept at analyzing the data, noting patterns in enemy movements, and helping the guards adjust defenses. Kale suggested rerouting power to reinforce failing shields, while Leora identified weak structural points and guided repairs. Though they were young, they were already contributing to the survival of the city, embodying the lessons their mother had instilled in them. Alara's attention returned to the central tower, where the Zyathians had concentrated a significant portion of their assault. Their commander, A towering figure clad in armor that shimmered with alien energy, moved with lethal precision, directing the attack with cold calculation. Alara knew that to survive, she would have to confront him directly, drawing his forces into traps she had prepared and buying time for the evacuation to continue. She signaled her squad to prepare for a decisive counterattack. Using a combination of drones, energy shields, and environmental hazards, they funneled the enemy into narrow corridors where their numbers and advanced technology became less effective. Explosions, energy pulses, and debris tore through the ranks, but humans pressed forward with determination. Every action was deliberate, every maneuver a test of ingenuity and courage. Alara led the charge, her movements swift and precise. She used the terrain to her advantage, leveraging the citadel's design and her intimate knowledge of its structures to outmaneuver the Xyathians. Her squad followed closely, executing complex strategies that disrupted the enemy and allowed humans to maintain control of critical areas. Civilians moved through the evacuation tunnels, guided by her planning and the bravery of those she had trained to lead in her absence. The battle reached a critical point when the Xyathian commander arrived at the central tower. Alara confronted him, using every skill she had honed through years of leadership and survival. She manipulated the environment, triggering energy surges and deploying automated drones in unexpected ways. The commander, powerful as he was, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable tactics of humans. For every calculated move he made, Alara had a countermeasure ready, exploiting his assumptions and forcing him into the traps she had laid. As the confrontation intensified, Alara's squad worked tirelessly to maintain the integrity of the citadel. They reinforced walls, redirected power, and engaged enemy forces with precision. Civilians continued to evacuate, their trust in the princess and her strategies sustaining their courage. The city was a symphony of human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and resilience, each individual playing their part in a coordinated effort to survive. Despite her focus, Alara felt the toll of the battle. Wounds and exhaustion threatened to slow her, but she pushed forward, knowing that the lives of her children and her people depended on her. Her determination became a beacon, inspiring those around her to continue fighting, even when hope seemed distant. Humanity's spirit was shining in the darkest hours, and Alara was its guiding light. At the height of the confrontation, Alara executed the final phase of her plan. She lured the Xyathian commander into a trap she had designed in the central tower, a combination of energy amplifiers and environmental hazards. The alien's weapons backfired, disabling critical systems in his armor and forcing him into a defensive position. Alara and her squad pressed the advantage, pushing the enemy back and buying crucial time for the evacuation to continue. Meanwhile, Kale and Leora, following the data from the battlefield, guided the guards in the sanctuary to reinforce the hidden tunnels and secure the safe zone. Their actions ensured that every civilian, including the youngest children, could escape the siege safely. The twins had become active participants in the defense, their intelligence and courage complementing their mother's leadership and the efforts of the soldiers. The Xyathians, though powerful, were unprepared for the ingenuity and determination of the humans. Every calculated attack they launched was met with creative countermeasures, forcing them into mistakes and slowing their advance. Alara's leadership, combined with the collective courage of her people, had turned what seemed like an inevitable defeat into a battle that could still be survived. As the day wore on, the evacuation progressed. Hundreds of citizens moved through tunnels, guided by the strategies Alara had designed and the vigilance of her elite squad. Kale and Leora watched with relief as families emerged safely on the far side of the city, ready to continue their journey to distant colonies prepared for resettlement. The princess's plan was working, and the sacrifices of those defending the citadel were buying every precious second needed for the survival of countless lives. In the final hours of the battle, the Xyathian forces made a desperate push to take the central tower. Alara, wounded but unbroken, faced them head-on. She used a combination of cunning, strategy, and sheer bravery to hold her ground, employing every trick, trap, and weapon available to her. The enemy faltered, unable to anticipate the unpredictable brilliance of human tactics, and slowly, piece by piece, they were pushed back. Finally, after hours of relentless fighting, the tide turned. The evacuation was complete, the citizens were safe, and the Xyathian forces were in disarray. Alara, exhausted and battered, watched as the enemy withdrew, their assault broken by the determination, ingenuity, and courage of humans. The citadel had endured, and humanity had proven its resilience once more. Kale and Leora emerged from the sanctuary, their eyes wide with awe at the sight of their mother and the remaining defenders. They had seen bravery and ingenuity in action, and they had contributed in their own ways. The twins were no longer just children. They were part of a living testament to human courage and adaptability. Alara embraced her children, relief and pride shining in her eyes. The battle was over, but the lessons remained. Humans could survive against overwhelming odds, and their strength lay not only in their weapons but in their minds, their hearts, and their unity. The princess had shielded her children with her life, guiding them through danger, teaching them courage, and showing them the true power of humanity. As night fell over the battered city, Alara stood with her children at her side, looking out at the horizon. The stars were bright, unbroken by the shadows of war, and she allowed herself a quiet hope. Humanity had survived this trial, and the lessons learned would carry forward into the future. Kale and Leora would grow into leaders, carrying the courage and ingenuity they had witnessed and contributed to, ensuring that the story of Ardelia would inspire generations to come. The princess had protected her children, her people, and her legacy. The Xyathians had underestimated humans, and they had paid the price. Ardelia was scarred but alive, a shining example of resilience, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. Even in the aftermath of battle, Alara knew that challenges would come again. Yet she was confident that her children, her people, and humanity as a whole could face whatever the universe had in store. The strength of the human spirit, she realized, was the greatest weapon of all, and it would never be broken. And so, as dawn approached once more, the people of Ardelia looked to the sky and to their princess, knowing that they had survived the impossible, and that the future belonged to those who dared to fight, to protect, and to endure. Humanity had triumphed, and the story of their courage would echo across the stars forever. Surrounded by enemies, the princess shielded her children with her life.